The hostages have been released. Today is a day of celebration. And by the time you watch this, this will be news that's a couple days old. But we just want to take a minute and, on behalf of the hostages, their families, their loved ones, Israel, the global Jewish community, we want to take a moment and celebrate this moment of freedom for our hostages. So this is going to be a shorter episode today, and we're going to talk about a couple things. We're all, of course, celebrating the release of the hostages. There's more work to be done. There's still the remains of those that were killed in captivity that Israel is hoping to get back. That's complicated. This situation and what happened on October 7th really set the stage for much of what arises today. And, there was a time when, I'll just say this, after October 7th, I could probably speak for Kalev as well, and Simone, sleep left me for a while. Kalev, you remember those early days. I
Sure.
could not sleep. It's all I could think about. And I had to go to work on this. And, Kalev, I'd love for you to talk. We've talked about it before, a little bit about, what you did that you viewed as your reserve duty. I know that you and I left much of what we were doing and dedicated our lives for an extended period of time. Kalev, can you share a little bit about your perspective on that? What were you feeling after October 7th, on October 7th, after October 7th, and then share a little bit about the work that we did for many, many, many months after that?
Sure. Well, Arise was very focused on economic development, on innovation for good, combating BDS in a smart way by creating more relationship connection and investment, particularly by those Christian evangelical business networks out there that wanted to strengthen the Israeli economy. And we were doing the innovation tours and everything else. Then October 7th, of course, hit hard, and it was a big surprise. And first of all, we were just all in utter shock and trying to digest the terrible images that were coming through our feeds and social media and everything else. And I remember those first conversations with you where we were just like, we have to do something about this. We have to use the network, the tools, relationships at our disposal to help Israel at this time. And the best idea we could come up with at that time, which I think in retrospect really worked, was let's put together a coalition of all these, what we call non-Jewish Zionists, but the majority of them are Christian networks, organizations, and leaders, to unify them in one voice to call for the immediate and unconditional release of the hostages. We started to get to work on this, but I notified the law firm where I work that for the foreseeable future, I will not be coming to work. I'm going to dedicate all of my time, energy, and life to this. And we worked around the clock. You're right. We were like many people, just kind of living on adrenaline at that time, probably getting 3 or 4 hours sleep a night max. Within 2 weeks, we had put together a coalition called the Voice for Freedom Coalition, which was made up of over 3,000 leaders, organizations, networks around the world who were willing to answer the call and to step up, which was such a beautiful thing. I remember making phone calls to people that, I hadn't heard from. Some of them I haven't heard from for 5, 10, 15 years, just reaching out saying, hey, will you join us in doing this? And there was just a fantastic response. We were some of the first movers on the kidnapped posters, which were translated into over 30 languages and dispersed them throughout the world. I think in retrospect, it's also important to point out that beyond the Jewish community that at that time was doing a lot of demonstration advocacy, really the only people who stepped up were, not the only, but I would say 90 to 95% were evangelical Christians, which was just a beautiful expression of, these two communities that came together based on the Judeo-Christian values that serve as the foundation of all our societies, saying this is unacceptable, and they're willing to be a voice on behalf of the hostages. And then the other big thing that we did, of course, was to initiate and manage delegations. And so we took family members of hostages, mothers, sisters, brothers, and fathers, and took them to meetings with state leaders and leaders of international organizations. So we were the first meeting of family members of hostages with the president of the Red Cross in Geneva. All of these events were facilitated by our Christian friends from around the world. Probably the most valuable thing that I took away from those 6 months of very intense activity around all these delegations are the wonderful friendships, with Yonatan and Idosh Shimriz, with Liron Berman, who finally today, his twin brothers, Liran Berman, his twin brothers, Ziv and Gali, were finally released today, and these last 20 hostages that are still alive. And it was so beautiful to see the pictures of that reunion with Liran. Liran worked his rear end off. I mean, and just any delegation, any trip, any interview we asked him to do, I mean, he was there. He was fighting, and he fought for the last 2 years to see his brothers release. Obviously, Doris Lieber, who fought on behalf of her son, Guy Iluz, who unfortunately died in captivity. And by the way, apparently his remains are some of the remains that are being supposed to be returned today, which, I'm very happy for Doris that she'll be able to bring closure to that part of her life. Although happy might not be the right word. I don't know. It's kind of hard to find words in situations like this. But we forged deep relationships with these people that'll last us a lifetime. When you're in these situations that everybody is just working together, it's like somebody serving next to you in the army, that you're kind of, you're in the same foxhole together fighting the enemy. There's no way to explain the depth of relationship and friendship that is forged at times like that. And we're just a small microcosm, a small picture of literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of Israelis that did everything they could in their network with their power, their relationship with friends. I mean, I remember back in the beginning, we had, 300, 400,000 young men called up to reserve duty. And so there weren't people left to stand at the gate and be on call as emergency response units within our towns and villages. And in those first few weeks, I remember seeing 60, 70-year-old women holding guns and checking cars coming into my neighborhood. It was just like this is what needs to be done. And so there's such a beautiful thing in the Israeli society that in times of emergency like this, everybody steps up and works together. And right now we're finally reaping the fruit of all of that as all of the hostages are coming home today. And so, I'm just very grateful and thankful. Our hearts are really rejoicing for what's happening. Yeah.
And I just want to say again to our friends, our supporters at Arise, that coalition, the Voice for Freedom coalition of over 3,000 individuals, organizations, churches, NGOs. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Kalev and I left everything that we were doing, and we did it in collaboration with you for many, many months. We beat down every single door that we could beat down until the doors started to close. We got in front of every camera, every microphone. We wrote every letter, every article. And when I say we, I'm not just talking about Kalev and I. I'm talking about those of us that are on our side. We went as hard as we possibly could without rest to do everything we could to see these hostages released until there really wasn't anyone that would meet with us any longer. And much of that led to doing our online advocacy and much of the work that we're doing today through Arise, which so much more of that will be emerging in the months and years to come. We're going to pivot and talk about where we see things going from here, just briefly. But before I do that, I want to once again just say thank you so much to the Christian world for standing alongside Israel in this time. There's this narrative going around, and people are trying to sow division between Jews and Christians, between Israel and America. And I want to just make this bold declaration and just emphasize the fact that this friendship that has existed for many, many years is alive and well. And Israelis today are so grateful for their partners in the non-Jewish community. All of those pro-Israel supporters from around the world that are non-Jewish, non-Israeli, we're so grateful for. And I know I also speak as an American. I know many of my American friends today are celebrating this great victory, this amazing day. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm going to wind this down and give Kalev the last word. Again, we're so grateful for those of you that are in the trenches with us and have been.
Since this is an episode about expressing a lot of joy and gratitude, I just want to thank that have supported Israel and the Jewish people through this very difficult period. And I would say this agreement that's been negotiated for the end of the war and the release of the hostages is nothing less than brilliant. And so everybody that had anything to do with that, just a big thanks from this Israeli that you would honor the friendship between our countries and help us get our loved ones and family members and friends home. So we're just very thankful to God for you and thankful to God for the great partnership and alliance between our countries. And this is the day that we should all be celebrating together. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone. A quick like, quick subscribe, quick share, and thank you, and stay tuned.